Fellas, you know Degree Cool Rush deodorant, right? Well, last year they changed the formula, and guys were mad about it. One dude even started a petition. So guess what? Degree heard us, admitted they messed up, and brought the original Cool Rush scent back exactly how it was. And it's in Walmart, Target, and other stores now for under $4. So grab some and remember why its cool, crisp, and fresh scent made it the #1 men's antiperspirant for the last decade. Degree Cool Rush is back, and it smells like victory for all of us.
Don't you love it when things are both easier and more affordable? Like when the rain washes your car for you. Or like when you save up to 10% by bundling your renters and auto insurance with USAA. Bundle with USAA and start saving. Get a quote today.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
From the Fifth Quarter Studio in Madison, Wisconsin, you're listening to the Coaching Youth Hoops Podcast.
They're playing basketball.
Here's our hosts, Steve Collins, and Bill Flitter.
Hey coaches, welcome to Coaching Youth Hoops. Before we jump in today, I just want to make sure you know what's going on. Coach Bill and I, over the last couple months, have been running an on-demand coaches clinic. We're going to just kind of pull the curtain back, let you kind of hear a little bit of what's inside of those as far as handouts and videos and all that stuff. If you want to see what's available, go over to basketballcoachesclinic.com and check it out. Let's head off to the podcast.
So this might look a little intimidating here, but this is kind of how I think about any new offense, defense, or whatever I'm planning to do. And we probably have all gone through this process. You probably haven't formalized the process yourself, but I wanted to put this down just to maybe help you guys frame when you're thinking about implementing an offense. And it will save you a lot of time on what to choose and what to do. So first off is really and we covered a lot of this last week, is first step is understanding who you are. You know, what's your offensive philosophy? Do you like it to slow it down? Do you like to speed it up? Are you more knowledgeable about a 5-out versus maybe a 4-out, 1-in? And then of course we have to look at our players. What are they good at? What's their skill level? What's their IQ, right? Can they dribble? You know, maybe that will change. Maybe you have to go to a more passing offense if they're, young and can't dribble. And then look at your time. You know, how much time do you have to implement an offense? I've seen here we got Courtney's got 2 90-minute practices per week. She's probably rare. Terry got 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. You go, Terry. Is that high school, Terry? Then we got 2 to 3 practices per week, 75 minutes. So we're a little bit all over the board, but we definitely most of the time when I talk to coaches, it's 1 to 2 practices a week for about 60 minutes. And then the next step is honestly just committing to something. There's so much information out there. There's not a lack of information, there's a lack of organization of that information. And no matter what you choose, you'll be fine. Right. And a lot of times, we'll start down a road of a particular offense and change it halfway through because we think the kids aren't getting it. Just step back and reteach it. Maybe it's maybe you got to break it down into smaller chunks of so they understand and comprehend what you're teaching. And then the next thing is come up with your foundation drills when you teach that offense. Maybe that's 3 or 4 core drills that you come up with that are progressive, and you can add constraints to it over time, where each time you walk into practice, you're not teaching something new. And again, we went through that pretty in depth last week on how to do that. I'll show you a quick example of that coming up too. And then make sure that each of those drills and your practice has a point of precision. I call that your pop. Like what you're walking into practice, what's the main focus today, and then what's the main focus of that drill. Make sure that's communicated to your athletes so they can start connecting what you're teaching to the game. And I know I'm guilty of it, not doing a very good job of that over the years, or watching last year we were absolutely horrible at layups. And I can imagine in the stands, parents saying, did they ever practice layups? They're just awful. We practice layups every day. Every day we practice layups, right? And we had that as our focus, but we just weren't good, right? We taught it multiple different ways, trying to figure out what the issue was. But anyway, the point there is make sure you just have that point of emphasis walking into practice, make sure the kids connect what you're teaching to the game. And then, of course, work your plan in practice. Make sure you're doing sprints, meaning 5 to 8 minute segments. So that means if you are planning an offense, you got to break that down into its smallest pieces. Teach that one concept, 5 to 8 minutes max, and then you're done. And if it's any longer than that, that's on you, meaning you're not teaching it correctly. If you feel like they're not getting it, don't stay on there more than 5 to 8 minutes. They're gonna stop hearing what you have to say. And the younger you are, the quicker you want to have these small little segments in your practice. And again, you don't, excuse me, that doesn't mean you have 50 drills in a practice. That means you just change the, the progression and constraints of a single drill. And again, I'll show that. And then make sure you're praising. I think, as coaches, we do that naturally. At least we hope we do. But it's going to create a better learning environment when you do that. And they will pick things up a lot quicker. And then modify, make small tweaks and adjustments as needed when you do that. So, or as you go through practice, maybe something just isn't working. Maybe take that out of your practice plan. So, and Anthony asked what POP stands for. Is your point of precision. So that is like your point, the one thing you're teaching in that drill and in that one practice. Okay, so that's just kind of a quick overview of how you might be thinking about developing your offense. It's really just kind of understanding where you're coming from, what the player IQ level is, how much time you have to teach, and then just making commitment to that offense, coming up with your foundation drills, coming up with your focus for that particular drill each day, and each practice have a focus, and then just working your plan, putting it to action. Does it work? Am I teaching this correctly? Small, short segments. And then as they're doing the drills, make sure you're pointing out things that they're doing well. Your kids that are more skilled, you want to, you don't want to point out everything, but you want to, push them a little bit harder. And those kids that are, of course, not as skilled, even if they're not doing the drill right, obviously say something to them. Maybe it's their attitude, right, that you can point to, but always give them lots of praise. All right. So going back to the principles of practice, I'm going to go through this quickly because, again, this is just a review of last week. Plan ahead, speak and sound bites. And I actually have a bunch of examples I'll go through in a little bit. And if I don't get to those, I think those are really important. I literally have my watch going in between, or my timer going when I talk to my students on the court. I don't want to talk for any more than 30 seconds. So I think about every time I want to address them as a timeout. And I set the clock, I go, and they're used to it now. And they know when I'm going long, and they will make gestures to me that, pointing to their watch. And they do it in a polite way. It's not being rude, but they know that's something I'm working on. Always be competitive in practice. I don't care what that looks like, right? And this is a big one for me too, is we cannot plan for every thing that's going to happen in the game. There's no such thing as a perfect practice or a perfect game. Get 70% of the where you want to go and let the magic happen and just relax, right? You can't teach everything. You can't plan for everything. The kids will figure a lot out on their own, and of course have fun. Okay. All right. Tips to get more done in practice: track time and move on. We kind of briefly mentioned that all my practices or all my drills are timed, usually in those 5-minute segments, 5 to 8 minute segments. I teach offense and defense at the same time. So I don't have to just teach offense and go back. I do have it segmented off by offense. I have it transition to offense, transition to defense, and defense. I do have those segments throughout my practice. For me, that's just my pop. So if I'm doing an offensive drill, I still have defense on, but I'm more focused on the offense piece of that. And then when I get to the defense, I might do that same drill, but this time I'm putting the emphasis on the defense and how they handle those situations. Going back to the sound bites, if you have to talk more than 30 seconds, you're probably trying to get too much in and their heads are going to explode. So again, go teach that one concept at a time. Make sure you're always explaining the why. Why are we doing this drill? How is it connected to the part of the game? And go back to those 4 parts again: offense, defense, transition to offense, transition to defense. As a player, you're in one of those 4 things throughout the entire game. And that's how I structure my practices. Create a shared vocabulary. I have a lot of words that I've used throughout the years, and I make sure my players understand those. And we're going to go through some of that today when we teach the offense. This was a big one for me. I ask any of my young players who I run into now who are playing high school at a different high school, I'll ask, they'll come up to me and say, talk about the ABCs that we're going to go through today. And fewer drills, the better. Again, add those constraints and progressions to your drills to maximize your time. I think I have an example here coming up. So,
hey, coaches, I hope you enjoyed that little bit of a taste of what Coach Bill and I have done. If you liked it, go over and check it out at basketballcoachesclinic.com. Let us know what you think, and have a great day.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.